this morning, and it's great to talk about the legislative agenda. It's interesting that it's coming real quickly. And you know, I'm going to do the presenting this morning, but really I would be remiss if I didn't recognize all of the folks that are on the legislative committee, because they really rolled up their sleeves and did a lot of great work. You know, I especially call out Brett Doney and Sarah Converse, and then everybody else on the committee has really helped out in crafting this and putting it together. So hopefully this morning we can have an interactive discussion and talk about the upcoming legislative session that we're looking forward to. When we just go to the next one. So when we talk about the upcoming session, just a few key things. First of all, we're not sure what the session's going to look like physically. Not certain if it's going to be a Zoom session or if they're going to allow people to come in and testify or what have you. But we're preparing in ways. So looking forward to that. Obviously, you know, just given COVID and taxes and all those sorts of things, it appears that funding is going to be tight. There's no question about that. And like many of the previous sessions, the hot buttons are going to be budget and infrastructure. Taxes are a big deal, and education certainly. But one of the important things I think as we move forward is that we communicate our platform. We work closely with our partners. We've got lots of great partners, some being the Infrastructure Coalition, MACO, the League of Cities, the university system, and many others. But you know, we need to work in tandem so that we can take care of the things that we need to take care of. And then, you know, as we mentioned before as well, you know, we can get up and testify and those sorts of things, but really it's the people that have been able to take advantage of these different programs that really resonate with the legislators. So anytime that we can get them on board, I think that behooves all of us. So when we talk about the upcoming session and some of the key dates just to look forward to, obviously the big one that's coming, a couple weeks away, the election day, November 3rd, we're going to have a lot of new faces, both in the legislature and in the administration. So it will be important that we work closely with them and spend that time that's necessary to do that education. The session is scheduled to begin on January 4th. Right now we have a date for a Rotunda Day, which is February 2nd, but we're not sure what that's going to look like right now. Again, it really depends on what happens with COVID and those sorts of things, and whether or not we have a virtual Rotunda Day or a physical Rotunda Day. But at this point, we do have a date identified, and Gloria has worked hard to make sure that happens. And then obviously the last day of the session, if it went the full 90 days, is April 28th. So, you know, we've got from January to April that we will be keeping a close eye on things that are going on. And so as I go through some of this, if there's other, if anyone has questions, and maybe Gloria, you can kind of monitor the chat a little bit just to see if there is a question. But you know, if anybody has questions or suggestions or anything like that, this is really intended to be an interactive type of a session. So with that, just some of the major legislative items that we're talking about right now. You know, obviously, first and foremost, if you remember in the 2019 session, our big push was House Bill 52 and making sure that our suite of economic development programs were extended and those sorts of things. Now, if you remember in the 2019 session, one of the things that we tried to focus on was capacity. We needed additional capacity to do our jobs. And the legislature and Department of Commerce and the other departments within the administration worked hard with us. But ultimately, one of the things that came out of that session was that they increased funding for a number of our different programs like Montana Manufacturing and CRDC and things like that. But they did that at the expense of the commercial program that we had, the research and development. So that program doesn't have any funding at this point. So, you know, we certainly that's a concern as well. But first and foremost, we don't want to walk into the legislature and start whistling a different tune saying that, okay, last session, everything was focused on the House Bill 52 programs, or our 52 programs, 2019 suite. And now we want to keep what we have. And that's why I say promote and retain rather than use the word protect, although at the end of the day, some people might feel that there's a defensive posture there that we're talking about. Then we'll look at, and I'll drill down into some of these a little bit more, but looking at improving our economic development effectiveness, working in a team environment, trying to establish those partnerships that we talked about. We'll talk about that in a minute. You've heard over the last couple days about the importance of broadband, and so that's certainly a focus of MEDA going forward in terms of especially with the move toward remote work and things like that, that our constituents have adequate broadband capacity. One of the big things that we continue year over year to focus on is critical infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then one thing that all of you, I think, know and are very concerned with is the whole workforce issue. And it's more than workforce development, it's really workforce attraction. And so identifying ways that we can attract workforce so that as all of you are creating these jobs and expanding our economies, that we have adequate workforce to do the job that we're expecting. And then finally, you know, looking at improving competitiveness among all of our other states. And we'll talk about a couple things that we're thinking about from that regard. So those are it's not the only items, but those are, in my mind, the major items that we're talking about or thinking about from a legislative perspective. If you remember, when we've talked in the past, one of the things that we said is that there are the things that are important to us. And then obviously there are things that we would have to oppose as well. So we look at it really in three different buckets, if you will. So if we look at the first topic that we talked about, which is the economic development tools, again, it's not protect them, but we really want to, first of all, promote the good things that we've been able to do as a result of those programs, and then retain them. And when I say retain them, I mean keep the program, I mean keep the funding as well. And if possible, if there is appropriate funding, you know, then we'd love to expand the funding in some of those programs. You know, obviously, as we look at this, TIF seems to raise its head every session, and because we'll have a number of new legislators, it might get some attention. It's a great tool, and we've talked about that with the different candidates over the last couple of days, and we want to make sure that stays as a tool in our toolbox and doesn't get changed or that sort of thing. As I've mentioned before, we want to keep funding for our major economic development programs, and we have a long list of those different programs. There's all of the ones that were in House Bill 52, as well as some of the others that are very important to move the state forward. And then last, but certainly not least on this one is making sure or assisting with to make sure that our local and regional tourism continues, because that's a big deal for Montana, and those are some of the industries that have really been hurt as a result of COVID. So we'll be taking a look at that as well going forward. So that really kind of summarizes at a high level the first bullet. Gloria, you seeing any questions or anything yet?
Yes, a couple that people are answering as we go. Like Steve asked
Okay.
if there's any chance the session would be delayed.
Okay.
And Sarah responded, maybe it will be a shorter session, but so far no direct question for you.
Okay, sounds good. I will keep going then. So if we look at the second one, we talked about effectiveness.
Rick,
Yes.
I missed one from Steve. It says, we have to connect this promote and retain existing programs piece to economic recovery. How do our current programs support Montana's economic recovery? That's a great question.
You bet. And that's exactly what we're going to have to convey to the legislators. We have to make that link. And I think, whether we're talking about the different programs, whatever program we're talking about, I think we need to make that connection, if you will, in terms of how we're addressing the recovery. I think Steve is spot on there. I don't know that it's necessarily a question that we can answer, but I think as we begin to prepare to testify and things like that, that is one of the things that we need to focus on is our message has to be that, yes, these are great programs. This is how we see those being even that much more important. So hopefully that answers that.
Okay. One more question. I'm getting a message, my internet's unstable. I'm sure it's due to the snow, so just have a little patience, please. Brigida is asking a question I know the legislative committee discussed, Rick. It's, what is MEDA's stance on MBRCT then? Fund it? And that stands for research and commercialization.
Research and commercialization. So that was the one that I talked about earlier, where last session the money was taken out of research and commercialization and moved over into some of the other programs for capacity. I guess my perspective, and certainly I would open it up to others within the committee, but my perspective at this point would be, first and foremost, we have to keep the programs that we have and the funding that we have. Ideally, if there's extra funding available, then that certainly could be a consideration and something we may push for. But that would be something we'd have to discuss, because again, in some of our discussions, we've talked about, the potential for additional funding in some of the other programs as well, if that opportunity existed. The question becomes, in regard to research and commercialization, is, with the amount of money that would be available, would we make a difference? Or should that be more of a focus at the university system level?
Okay, and Rick,
I think the short answer is we'll look at it.
Okay, and Anne Marie mentioned that the statute was repealed, and so Brigida is then asking.
It wasn't actually repealed, it just sunsetted, just for clarification. It was not renewed.
It was one of the programs that was not renewed, correct? Okay, let's move forward. So when we talk about effectiveness, again, that top one is key, I think, for all the practitioners across the system. Increasing the flexibility, ease of use of existing programs. When we see things that are administratively burdensome or bureaucratic, those sorts of things, we've established a very good relationship with Department of Commerce and some of the other departments up in the state And those are things we can bring to them. They will look for opportunities to help us to reduce that administrative burden. So as all of you are seeing those kinds of things pop up, you know, communicate with us and let us know, and we will see what we can do. Secondly, statewide teamwork. Again, we're going to make more progress when we're working together. And so whether it's with all of our partners, again, such as MACO and League of Cities and the university system and others, or working with the different departments within the state administration. But again, trying to move in the same direction rather than the push and pull against each other. This one probably could, the next one probably could go back toward the employment and workforce and that sort of thing, but we included it here, and really it's just a partnership trying to look at business attraction opportunities. What can we do to attract more businesses? Now that can have you know, obviously as economic developers, that's extremely important, but we have to have the workers to be able to do that, to serve those businesses if and when we're successful in that attraction effort. So it's kind of a twofold effort. And then finally, one of the things that was suggested was in regard to the Board of Investment. They have been a great partner to us. They provide a lot of value to different programs within the state, and they've been very vital in moving our economy forward. But there are some thoughts that maybe there's some additional things that we could work hand in hand with them to make them even that much more valuable. So looking at something like that as well. So that's kind of on the effectiveness side. Any questions there?
Yes, Britt has asked, how important is it for city and county elected officials to directly support the MEDA agenda in the session?
Wow, that's such a timely question or comment. I think it's huge. You know, one of the things that we need to do, and we're a little bit tardy in this, but I think one of the things that's important is that we get our legislative agenda out, not only to the prospective candidates, but at this point with 2 weeks before the election, for sure getting it to those that are elected, and then also getting all of our local folks on board. As Brett mentioned, I know that as an example, Sarah has been reaching out a lot with the folks at MACO, and Jason and others have been involved in that as well. We've had folks reaching out to the League of Cities and things like that, but it is absolutely key that we get them engaged and prepared to act on our behalf. So great question.
We have one more back to the Board of Research and Commercialization, Rick.
Yeah.
Russ Fletcher says several states have combined their R&D programs with a state-funded venture fund that focus on their designated clusters for development. And Brett chimed in, that's the way to go.
Well, and I'll let Brett talk here in 1 second. You know, I think some of that resonates with the NextGen study as well. And, you know, that was something that kind of, I think, was expressed in that NextGen study. And so one of the things we've talked about is for the 2021 session, obviously we've got our agenda and the things that we're going to bring forward and those sorts of things, but also we want to use the information within the NextGen study to kind of set the foundation for some opportunities that could happen in 2021 and more so for the 2023 session. So I think it's a twofold effort. But Brett, I see you itching there. What would you like to add?
Rick, I think you're absolutely right. Good morning, everyone. There are so many uncertainties that I think this strategy is good, which is I'll use the word protect. Our existing programs have proven to be absolutely critical in our economic survival and recovery. And we need to make a very strong case about those programs. But we should take components of the NextGen study, compile it with other knowledge that we have, and do as I've been very impressed with the Broadband working group, is start preparing proposals that are backed with facts from other states and provinces, because we don't know. It may be that we have to just, hey, let's hang on to what we have and effectively communicate how important those tools are. But there could be opportunities. You never know in a legislative session, and this year, of course, we never know. But the more we're prepared to implement and become more competitive, the more packages we have that are ready to go that legislators and the new administration can dig into, the better prepared. Some things we might be able to get done this upcoming session, some things the next session, some things might be the session after that, but if it's worthwhile pursuing, we just have to keep working at it and then engage as many partners as we can to make things work. The other component that you covered that I think is so important is let's look at ways to use the tools and resources that we already have more effectively. So any MEDA members that have ideas, some of those changes can be made administratively. Some may require legislation, and if they do require legislation, we need to look at it. But I think every legislature and administration is very open to ideas that don't cost money. So if we have any ideas, we need to really flesh them out so that they're ready to pull off the shelf.
Excellent. All right. So let's move on to the next one then. This one is improve critical infrastructure, and certainly that's key to everything that all of our practitioners do. You know, we've had a great relationship with the Infrastructure Coalition. We want to continue to have that relationship. They will probably be the lead in terms of bringing infrastructure stuff forward, but we'll certainly be supportive. And then if there are other infrastructure type of things that are more important from our perspective as a MEDA group, then we would take those on as well. Obviously, TCEP's a big program. It's important. We want to continue to maintain funding for that particular program. And then certainly there's a lot of interest in terms of passenger and freight rail service. And you know, as practitioners, we'll look to what we can do to improve that. You know, certainly that one's a wild card, and we'll see where that goes. But that's an important thing, again, for an economic development perspective. I'll just move on, and Gloria, if there's other things, just let me know.
Just real quick, Allison, which maybe I've been hanging out with the broadband people too much, but I think a lot of us would agree. She says, I feel like we should die on the broadband sword. We all need it. Our growth will be bottlenecked without a concerted effort around broadband.
You bet, and I'm gonna hit that here in just a second. So great segue. This one, you know, relates back to competitiveness, and again, as we talked about and Brent added a minute ago, you know, using that NextGen study to be foundational legislators, but the administration, and you know, begin to build that dialogue, because you know it's absolutely critical that we remain competitive. with our partners and with those across the region. And this will be one of the ways that we move in that direction. So looking sometime during the session that we would host a forum and have some of that conversation relative to competitiveness. Okay. This is a huge one. Workforce attraction and development. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's a big deal in every one of the communities across the state. And so, you know, it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of partnerships, all those sorts of things. And so here we talk about, you know, relationships with the Department of Labor and its workforce programs, relationships with the colleges and adult education, making sure that everybody's working together to begin to attract workforce, develop workforce, those sorts of things. That's going to involve having relationships with OPI and our vocational schools, reaching down into our high schools and potentially even down into the middle schools. And an idea in terms of career opportunities so that they stay in the state when they actually graduate from high school or college. We want to continue to promote the apprenticeship programs. That's a big deal. We're seeing not as much interest in different times in terms of some of the trades. And those are great programs. And for some students, those make great sense. And I think we need to promote those and go forward with those. And then finally, the incentives and that sort of thing, making sure they're available. So I'm just going to go on because I've got a number of other items still related to workforce attraction and development. And then I think we could have a fairly robust discussion about this one. Continuing on, talent management strategies. How do we keep what we have? How do we attract new ones? And how do we develop or identify the workforce of the future? You know, I think when we talked to one or more of the candidates, they talked about getting people to come back home, and that come home Montana and some of that sort of stuff. And again, that was a real strong theme within the NextGen report. You know, so again, this to me, over and above protecting or maintaining the programs we have, I think this one is really the hot button for our organization. We need to look at marketing. How do we market this so that we move things forward? Certainly want to look at and follow all of the workforce legislation and then leverage the effectiveness of our two-year schools. They're the ones that can respond quickly when we have training needs. And so I think, you know, having that relationship with them and then reaching out with them to say, here are some of the opportunities that we see and these are the training needs that we see that come as a result of that. So that was that one. I know that we'll have some discussion, so I'll pause at that point and just ask about questions.
Sure, Rick. Let's see, Lorraine, back to the broadband issue. She made the point we don't need to start from scratch, that there was work done in 2012 that we could build on. Paul Tuss mentions that value-added ag is huge and we need to focus on it more than ever before. Brian noted about MIC, that there's more funding is needed for infrastructure. And then Steve, we can sure do this. He would add retention, workforce retention and attraction, absolutely. And then Lorraine noted a cool program that she's doing in Stevensville And she put the whoops, my internet's unstable, huh? Summitcareercenter.org. Also, I want you all to know the chat is being recorded as well. And so I'll be able to pull out these great resources such as Lorraine mentioned, and we'll be sure to have it in our conference summary. And then Kelly Kelly Cresswell mentioned apprenticeship is a great option for non-trades too, which sometimes we forget.
Right.
And the Montana Youth Apprenticeship Partnership is working on healthcare, IT, and more. So it's good to remember that it's more than just trades.
That's a great point. And I think, you know, one of the keys, I think, is that we build this collective group, if you will, so that we're not operating in silos. I think that it's important that you know, as we move forward with workforce attraction and development, that everyone's working toward the same end game, if you will. And to Steve's point, I put this slide back up there because, you know, right at the top we talk about retaining workforce, and that's key. You know, we're seeing the workforce change. You know, this is one of the very first times that we've had 5 different generations in the workforce. And so that's great, but with it comes challenges. And so, you know, we need to be focused on that as well. And education becomes a component of that as well. Okay. Anything else there, Gloria? Go ahead.
I was going to ask, Rick, are we proposing that we, as MEDA, craft workforce attraction retention legislation? Or are we just monitoring other folks' initiatives, or kind of what's the action on this one?
Well, at this point, we're going to monitor and follow. I don't know, at this point, we have not identified any initiatives that we would necessarily bring forward on behalf of MEDA, but that does not mean that we would not. I think if there's an opportunity and there's a strong desire for us to bring something forward that would be helpful from a workforce perspective, certainly would be open to that. Did you have thoughts about something like that, or?
Not yet, but I think, you know, I think we all are struggling from a workforce perspective, and so maybe it's time that we take the bull by the horns, I guess, and try and propose something as MEDA that would help solve issues that are happening in all our communities. So that was just my thought. But
Yeah, good point.
So, Rick, to add on to that, there in our NextGen report, there's some models about incentivizing the attraction and retention of talent. There's models even in our own region in South Dakota about how they retain their graduates by incentivizing them working in South Dakota. I don't think I would be bashful about saying, hey, this is an approach we need to talk about. And to Brett's earlier point, we may not get any traction this session, but we should put a marker down that says if we want to get serious about retaining and attracting talent, here's what other states are doing, here's what we would propose. I also think this is new territory because the state had not effectively been in the talent attraction business while everybody else really was. I think we relied on our beautiful landscape to be the thing that attracts folks and the quality of our communities and et cetera. But that's a little bit of a passive approach. And so we've kind of always focused on the workforce development side, not the talent attraction side. And I think in economic recovery, you need to be aggressive about retaining talent and attracting talent. One last thought, if we retain every body that comes out of our high school and higher ed system and plug them into our workforce, we'll still fall short because we're all getting older. And so attraction has to be that kind of strategic mix there to make it effective.
Well,
If I can, Rick, sorry, just if it's okay, a quick thought on Allison's comment and Steve's too is maybe going forward, there's the legislative committee could focus on a topic, a very singular topic like workforce at some point in the future, where the hour or whatever we spend on a future conference call is really gathering sort of the best energy and ideas. So it's sort of like pre-committee, because I've seen that's worked really well in broadband and a few other things that now have sort of a working committee, but maybe there's a step in advance. All the conversation today, it really is going forward. I love the idea of keeping these issues kind of circular and together because they're so interrelated. But maybe that's a process going forward where we have future legislative committees that are singular topics, and we sort of gather the best ideas and see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
So Rick,
What occurs to me as well, and I don't mean to talk over you. What occurs to me as well is, if you remember a couple slides ago, I talked about a forum related to competitiveness. And I think one of the things that would come out of that, obviously from a competitive perspective, is available workforce and workforce attraction and those sorts of things. And hopefully when we have that forum and we engage the administration and we engage the legislators as well as our MEDA folks, hopefully there will be some things come out of there that maybe resonate with us and we feel would be a good springboard for us to move forward, possibly this session. If not this session, then the 23 session.
so Rick, this is Sarah.
Yeah.
And I am negligent in getting Gloria her document, but I got a couple other comments for the legislative priorities document I'm putting together. Thanks to Brett, I broke out workforce talent and recruitment from retention, and there are some action items within that in how to move forward too. So I did put some of that in this traction too. And I believe, I don't remember, I took it from NextGen and I took it from other conversations that we have. So I do have some of that in the document.
Excellent. And this is all information we'll share with all of the different MEDA members as well.
Rick, I wanted to propose a different organizational structure than Paul's idea. I think we need to rely on the MEDA working groups to put together policy proposals that then get presented to the legislative committee and then go to the board. I don't think a 1-hour Zoom on workforce or infrastructure or any of these other challenging issues by the legislative committee is going to solve anything. And I use the broadband group as an example. They come up with a range of policy proposals and then we work it through our process. And the quicker we can have those working groups put together proposals, the better.
I would add to that with what Brett said and what Gloria just put into the chat is, and we heard it yesterday from Todd with the chamber. I mean, they're very interested in the workforce attraction development side. And I think a working subcommittee that this could be where we actually have the true collaboration with a lot of those associations, because we all are seeing that issue. I do think that's, as president, that's something I'm going to be thinking, at least in my mind, we need to get that subcommittee going. Whether we're chairing it or co-chairing it, I think it needs to be done and probably started right away.
Excellent. Great conversation as well. So let's just continue to move forward. This next one, all of you have mentioned, and I think it's huge. I just put a title up here right now, but obviously broadband access, making sure that we have access throughout the state of Montana, reliability and affordability. We have a broadband committee that's working very, very hard with that. As you've noted in different discussions with the candidates, we've asked questions in regard to that, especially at the federal level. And Tracy, maybe do you want to take a second and just talk about kind of what kinds of things you guys are focusing on your broadband subcommittee?
Sure, Rick, thank you. So yes, we do have a very active broadband committee. It kind of ebbs and flows with attendance, but we meet every second and fourth Monday of the month at 2 o'clock. We go from 2 to 3. It's steady. It is kind of because we have such short time frame, and as mentioned before, we want to hit as much as possible. So it's pretty structured, which some people like and some don't, and I understand that, but we have a lot to cover. Right now, we talked on Monday about some policy development. We received some information from Jenny's staff at the libraries. A lot of discussion is around developing a statewide program or a coordinator that could help from the state offices. We also have been talking about what is the FCC regulations and how do we make that happen, because this isn't just necessarily what we want in the state. We have to be very aware of the national implications and issues, and we have some really very dedicated people in the committee that are not necessarily MEDA members that are engaged in helping us kind of navigate through that. I don't know if we'll have, our goal was to have a legislative policy outline by tomorrow, Rick. I don't think we're going to have that. We haven't heard from the telecom providers yet on what their needs are. So we're still going to be kind of gathering that information. So we're a ways out from the policy, I think, but we are working towards it.
Excellent. And this one, I think, goes hand in glove with the whole workforce stuff. You know, obviously, remote work is a big deal, and working from home work, you know, all that sort of thing. I think broadband is absolutely key to it. So great job, and appreciate everything you're doing there. That was the main stuff that I wanted to talk about at this point, and really open it up to the group to get a couple ideas in terms of, are there gaps? Are there things that maybe we didn't talk about that you think should be included? Are there things that maybe we're emphasizing too much that we need to do something different? But really just have for this last 10 or 15 minutes, just a conversation with the membership and hearing from anything.
Rick, this is Brian. One thing I might want to just again bring up is what we heard yesterday from the state chamber is we are putting more reliance on, physical property owners within the cities, the counties, the state. It's either payroll or property owners. And that conversation is going to become harder and harder. I would say coming out of COVID right now, we're going to be seeing an increase in tourism for the next couple of years because we're perceived as safer than traveling to Europe or someplace else. And that's going to put more burden on our limited infrastructure, our overtaxed infrastructure. So I think just as a body, we need to be thinking that we're going to be asked to participate in means of developing new income, and where does that get placed? Again, sitting on the Infrastructure Coalition, that is something that keeps coming up, and hearing conversations from our governor candidates talking about absolutely no to sales tax, hold flat our spending. Those are words that they may sound good in an election cycle, but come next summer, next fall, we're going to see even more issues with that not solving our problems. So just something on the horizon that we're going to be asked to be campaigning potentially for that. And I think going to Britt's point, that's where I think us working closely with the cities, the league, and the county is going to be very important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Hey,
Other-
Rick,
Yeah,
a thought,
Steve.
one thing from yesterday, and none of us can predict the exact outcome of the election. And so this is qualified based on, we won't know some of this for a few weeks, but I would take seriously the offer we received multiple times as we were interviewing candidates to send ideas and plans and strategies to them. So I'll just pick on Congressman Gianforte. He has a written plan. He really likes his written plan. And I'm sure all of you have gone through it in detail. You probably it's under your pillow. Rick, I don't know where it's at. But anyway, we should look at that as part of our homework. And then I try and identify the things that we can lean into that make sense and send him our ideas. He invited us to do that. So part of and the other candidates, we should do that too. We should have a white paper that we send them that maybe it's the essentials for Montana's economic recovery. I posted that. And so whatever we come up with, hey, let's say this is what we're thinking, happy to re-engage with you and talk out loud. This talking about economic recovery with our regional partners, and can we start that right away? I see within the first 2 weeks of the session, if MEDA and the state chamber hosted a economic recovery virtual summit, and we invited the legislature to listen in, to hear what's going on in other states, talk a little bit about our plan, maybe get a little bit of a national perspective. Boy, that really reinforces us as a source of information when it comes to talking about economic recovery. That's a great idea, whoever had that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And, one of the things we talked about at the board level a year or two ago was relevance. And I think, we've worked hard to make MEDA a relevant organization and bringing forward relevant kinds of items. And I think that is spot on in terms of continuing that. So I appreciate those comments. What else? We've got about 8 minutes or so. If there are other questions, otherwise, certainly we can end a few minutes early. But again, I would encourage all of you, if there are legislative kinds of things, bring them to the legislative committee. If you're interested in participating, please feel free to join us. And first, and probably most importantly, as we get this information out to all of you, share it with your constituents, whether that be your local commissioners, your elected officials, your legislators, all those kinds of people, because I think we need to get everybody on board. Any other questions?
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Does MEDA have a stance on public-private partnerships and maybe how the state approaches that on state-owned ground? I'm just curious. I haven't heard any of that in the discussion.
I think that item is absolutely huge. I know that's one that, for example, Brett really pounds on when we have our meetings and that, and others within the committee as well. Just the importance of public-private partnerships and those sorts of things. And, I think any way that we can leverage our programs and our activities to encourage that, I think is positive. So in terms of a stance, certainly extremely supportive of that. And we look for all opportunities within the different entities to make those things happen, because that's, at the end of the day, that's where the value really comes.
Hey, Rick, I would add to that, Brigitte, if you have some ideas on that, Bridger Mellon with the state chamber has been the person who usually pushes the PPP the public-private partnership component. If you've got some ideas, he's looking for a new avenue to try to run at the legislature this time. I know I've been talking to him about the workforce component, that there might be a public-private partnership within that. But if you've got some other ideas, he's openly right now looking for input on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll reach out.
Okay.
All right.
This is Jason with Mako.
What was that, Jason?
May I have the floor for a second?
Yeah.
Mako has, I just was running through our list of resolutions that were passed at our annual conference a week or two ago. And I see two that may be of interest to MEDA to follow up on. One is related to leasing of county property. Right now we're limited on any piece of ground the county owns to a 10-year lease, which is obviously not going to be very attractive to a developer. So we are going to look to align that with what the cities are allowed to do, which I believe is 30 or 40 years. So that may be something from an economic development perspective that would fall in line with where you would lend your support. And the other is, as you well know, that especially those that were involved in the BARSA effort, counties have the ability to put to the voters the opportunity for a local option fuel tax. It has all sorts of administrative headaches. It has border headaches if gas stations are located close to a county line, etc. We're going to make a run at changing the way those taxes are collected from the local retailer to the distributor, so that the same way the fuel tax is collected at the state level, so that we don't have a whole new system of collection at the retailer that they have to track. We think it will make it more attractive at the local level to implement, takes care of a bunch of the administrative headache. So those would be two that and then obviously those funds would be eligible for, infrastructure, et cetera, that you folks are interested in. So those would be two of the bills that I noticed right away that MEDA may want to engage with Mako and consider whether you want to support or not.
Jason, are they keeping it at 2 cents? I think that's what I recall it being.
We're not going to mechanism.
I know we're coming up on the hour. One other thing that you probably saw in the chat that I would bring up, Steve Simonson asked about affordable housing, and I think affordable housing is extremely important, and really it goes hand in hand with the workforce attraction efforts. Obviously you can't attract folks if you don't have affordable housing, and so I think there's definitely a relationship there as well.
Rick, can I add one thing when we're talking about some of these things like housing and childcare, and you've heard me say it before in the legislative committee, sometimes we don't have to be the lead, but we do have to be a partner in supporting. And so I'm going to encourage everybody to follow the Housing Coalition. It is an incredibly great coalition of people all across the state of Montana. Get to know your NeighborWorks Montana folks as well. I think that's our avenue. And then we need to know, they've got a very aggressive policy as well and legislative agenda coming out. And they hired Glenn Opal as part of their legislative strategy. So I think that we need to understand what they're doing and get behind them and support them instead of necessarily taking the lead on that one.
Yeah,
Great point.
this is Kim, and I was going to say exactly what Tracy just said. They're already out there talking to both the people they think are going to be in the legislature this next year. So
Great, thank you, Kim.
you bet.
Are they tackling childcare, Tracy, or just housing?
I'm sorry, what, Allison?
Are they trying to tackle childcare, or who's really
So we have a childcare group forming as well. So the Family Forward has been kind of leading the charge with the 0 to 5 in Montana. Family Connections is really engaged. We had a summit last November-ish, maybe, I'm not quite sure. They laid out some groundwork. There is an early childhood coalition forming with some state resources and some federal resources coming in to support that as well. And so I think that's another one that we definitely can kind of pull and get behind. I'm not seeing any specific legislation conversation yet, but I'll definitely keep you guys posted if I see anything.
Hey, Rick, we are joined by Governor Steve Bullock, so we're going to segue into our candidate dialogue, if that's okay, Rick.
Excellent. Thank you all for a great conversation.
Governor Bullock, we're just wrapping up kind of a legislative dialogue in preparation for the next legislative session. So,
damn, I wish I could have heard that, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
How are you guys feeling about next legislative session?
Very optimistic, and you know, there's a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, we'll have a new administration and probably be operating under some interesting rules and practices because of COVID, and then limited resources, and so it'll be an adventure for all of us. We thank you, Governor Bullock, for joining. And that's exactly the tone of our meeting today, is to have a dialogue. But I want to pause and thank you, and thank your team. It's not easy to work through this pandemic. And I can talk personally, and I think my colleagues across the state, all 72 of us that are on the call today, would echo this. Your team has been working 24/7 and engaging with us. We all have their numbers on speed dial, and they all return their phone calls. And so I feel a strong partnership in how we're responding to COVID in Montana. We still have a lot of work to do, obviously. We know we do in our community, but I want to thank you for your team. They've been doing a great job, and that's very much appreciated.
Thanks, Steve.
You know MEDA well, but let me give you a little bit of backdrop, and then we're going to ask you 4 questions just to start the dialogue, and a lot of them will relate to federal programs that we use every day in helping Montana businesses. MEDA is a group of professionals that are well-trained and credentialed and experienced in community and economic development, and we serve communities all throughout the state of Montana, as you know. On a daily basis, we help fill gaps. We help build bridges, both literally and figuratively. We finance businesses. We do troubleshooting. We help businesses and communities plan. We provide leadership and resources for entrepreneurship, and we encourage new private investment and job creation and help build our local community. With all that said, we know we can't do that in a vacuum. It's not successful. And that's the spirit that we really come to this dialogue with you today, is a sense of partnership. And so with that in mind, we're going to ask you questions as a way for us to just give you a sense of the things that are important to us in a federal context, and then work with you to see what that partnership can look like in the future. So here's our first question. Federal economic development programs, including the Economic Development Administration, the suite of USDA rural development programs, Community Development Financial Institution Fund, National Institute of Standards and Technology Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and Small Business Administration, Small Business Development Centers. All those programs have proved critical to community and economic development success in Montana. Will you continue your support of those programs in partnership with MEDA if you're serving in the United States Senate?
Yeah, and Steve, first also, thank you for the partnership. And I say that to all 70 folks on the call, not just through COVID, but through the last 8 years of working together, recognizing from my perspective that business development and opportunities more often than not, by a vast majority, occur like it wasn't occurring out of my office, it was occurring on the ground. You working with businesses from the mom and pop to larger ones that want to locate here. And it was that partnership, as even the question notes, that made it so, like, I know that we were a little all had some angst whether we'd get the suite of economic development programs through at the state level. But it was that partnership that actually made it so that it went through pretty damn easy. And to your point of the suite of the federal programs, we'll absolutely support continued funding for those programs. And you always, I've always said a budget is a reflection of the values that we have as a community or as a state. And I will need your, in going from, I think I know pretty damn well the suite of state programs, but haven't always adequately paid attention to the federal programs. So not only the need to continue funding the extant programs, but if there are things that are unique to Montana or unique opportunities that we could seize on, I want to use this position to really reflect and be able to help educate the rest of the Senate and Congress about what the needs are of a frontier or rural state. So we'll absolutely continue to support funding these programs and look forward to working with you on what additional things that we need.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. A couple of more programs, the CDFI fund and the USDA rural development were left out of the CARES Act funding. Will you support supplemental funds to these programs and encourage the USDA to create more flexible terms to make these programs more effective in helping Montana's growing economy and our economic recovery?
The answer is yes. And a couple of different things. Like in March, when the CARES Act passed, it was certainly cobbled together to the degree that a number of things were afterthoughts. I mean, initially, even providing additional funding for hospitals was an afterthought. Unfortunately, money for our tribal nations was an afterthought. There are so many things. And then always, at least I was under sort of the impression of, all right, they're trying to get some stuff together, but we should expect additional things to occur. Now here we are 7 months later, and it sort of, to me, underscores, it's emblematic of the problems of Washington, D.C., is that the Republicans will have one idea, the Democrats will have one idea, and as opposed to saying, all right, there's probably some good stuff in both of them, they just say, all right, we're taking our ball and going home. And, we're in a position truly where even testing will expire as of December 31st. So they've got to get their act together. And knowing how important rural development is and the CDFI fund is to the work that you all do, but to the work that then Montanans are doing, we have to make sure that, I sure hope something gets passed even before I would be sworn in, but we do have to make sure, look, even before the pandemic, our rural communities need significant investment. And additional coronavirus relief dollars can actually help jumpstart some of that.
Steve, thank you. I appreciate that. And boy, so
Well,
I'll stick to the next question. Montana is behind most states in reliable broadband, with speed, cost, availability issues all across the state in both rural and urban communities. Federal programs, laws, regulations have not appeared to be effective in helping Montana address this critical infrastructure issue. Will you work with us to ensure Montanans have access to world-class broadband service? And how would you join us in helping accelerate our ability to provide this service in our communities?
Yeah, and I tried a couple times with state dollars, and it was interesting, like coming out of the Main Street program, putting a pool of state dollars in that wouldn't have made all the difference in the world, but and sometimes that was even more challenging than anything, trying to get all the actors and the Telecom Association together. Like, look, I'm pleased that if I go back even 4 years ago, only about 2/3 of our schools were connected at 100%, FCC minimum. Now we are at 100% of our schools for lower cost. But even before COVID, like I thought one of the things that better be the first 100-day agenda is a significant infrastructure bill, not only because it creates good jobs, not only because our communities need it, but if we can't get Democrats and Republicans to agree on the need for infrastructure, I think that that place called Washington, D.C. is more broken than I could ever imagine. You look for silver linings coming out of this global pandemic. And I think that the silver lining in some respects, both for education and for telehealth, demonstrated the need for wherever you are in a state, in rural areas, the need for solid connectivity and how really wanting it is. And the good thing is that you could be in rural New York or rural Montana, and we don't have the speeds. And to your point too, often in the urban areas as well. So I am optimistic actually that we could get a significant federal investment in a large infrastructure bill at the start, and that the need for connectivity and better reliable broadband at a fair cost is finally really resonating. And it's something that, like, I would not agree to a big infrastructure bill without it, because I also think that, you know, there's going to be great needs in some of our urban areas, but COVID so underscored what you all have struggled with businesses long before COVID. So I am going to be pushing for it. And I think that we recognize this isn't just a luxury anymore. It's a necessity for work, for school, for healthcare.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate that, and we'll appreciate that partnership. Our next question relates to the Federal Economic Development Administration. It is the primary economic disaster response agency, and it received only $1 billion in response to COVID-19 nationwide, across the nation. For comparison, as you know, Montana received $1.2 billion in CARES Act dollars for our relief and recovery efforts, and we would all argue that that wasn't enough either. EDA's limited funds were distributed through non-competitive grants, leaving little for competitive grants needed to help Montana businesses and communities. Will you join us and support additional EDA funding to give more Montana economic development, tourism organizations, counties, municipalities a chance to compete with funds? And we can absolutely be competitive if the dollars were there.
No, and that's exactly right. I mean, I've seen the work that you all have done, and I'd put that work up against anyone in the nation and any entity in the nation. And yeah, with like that 1.2 billion, we tried to make programs that were tailored toward the needs of small businesses and even medium and large, and our nonprofit sector, and recognizing that, you know, many of them didn't end up getting anything from the federal programs. But it is a travesty to think that nationwide there was only $1 billion for EDA. And it is one where I've seen what you put together. And I've seen how it could be competitive anywhere, but not if the pool is also so damn small that it becomes effectively meaningless. And so we'll be a partner in doing that work. And I'll also be a partner in what we have been able to do so many times in Montana is getting over the gridlock, right? I mean, look, things haven't worked perfectly over the last 8 years, but we also know our tax climate, where when the tax foundation says fifth best for businesses. We know that from a regulatory perspective, we've worked with you to say, what are the barriers? We know that investing in education and infrastructure is important for communities. And then that we know at the end of the day that what we share is a lot greater than what divides us. And I don't think Washington understands that anymore. And the idea of ensuring that we do have EDA funds that are sufficient so that even if it is competitive, the competitiveness, well, that it's a pool big enough to actually make a difference in our communities. That I look forward to working with all of you on that.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to open this up to my colleagues around the state. Steve, we will give you a chance at the end for some closing. We want to give you that opportunity to share some final words with us. But before we do that, Gloria, any questions in the chat, or any one of my colleagues, wave your hand or virtually throw something at me, whatever it takes to get my attention, and go ahead and ask your question. Anybody? Paul, go ahead. Then we'll go to you, Rick.
Governor, there's a couple of important projects that I know that you're familiar with here on the High Line that have significant statewide implications, but require federal attention as well. One is our Amtrak, passenger rail service. In 4 days, we're going from daily service here on the High Line with the Empire Builder to 3 times a week service. Going to be a significant setback for transportation here in Montana from Wolf Point to Libby, and really has statewide implications. And the second project is the catastrophic failure that we've had up here on the High Line on the Blackfeet Reservation with regard to the St. Mary Conveyance Works. And I just want to get your take on the federal government's responsibility for that, and if you'd support those projects.
Yeah, and I'd say the third would be finally settling the Fort Belknap Indian Community Water Compact, because that extends so far beyond just Fort Belknap. Look, so let's go through each of them. Amtrak, this would have been now 2 years ago, the administration said, well, actually, to augment the funding and keep Amtrak going, we expect states to pick up 50% of the bar tab for what runs through the state. That is absurd. It is really absurd. And you could turn around and argue whether or not, Amtrak should have always been a government agency, just like the Postal Service should. I would submit that the answer is yes. And these are part of, I guess, the obligations and responsibilities of federal government. And I will be advocating for additional funding for Amtrak, making sure that it's not cut, because it's important to the Highline communities, but it's also important for transportation across this nation. And the idea that either we should really cut back services because they're not making a profit, or government's not always supposed to make a profit, by the way, or that somehow states should be picking up the tab. It's not unlike when they said that all of infrastructure should be private-public partnerships, and I'd explain we're not going to be putting a toll road across Highway 2 to this administration. Second, I'm so glad that we turned around, and I think it's even today, they're doing the ribbon cutting for the 2 drops on St. Mary's, and was glad that we could get the state dollars to make sure that that would happen. But we do have to, this is a continuing, you're not going to have viable communities anywhere if you don't have base infrastructure like water. And there are effectively formulas when we did this repair of what we need to do with state dollars, federal, and then the overall community input. But I'll look to leaders like you, Paul, on the best way to go forward on that. And then the third that I had mentioned was the water settlement with Fort Belknap. I mean, that's, I think, one of the longest, I don't remember, it's been hanging out there for 20 years. And it's got to be taken care of because it extends so far beyond just the Fort Belknap Indian community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor Bullock, we had a follow-up question in the chat about your thoughts on the proposed Southern Amtrak passenger service. Can you give us some
Steve, I think it would be a damn good idea, but I also think we got to stabilize and fortify what we have before I think that that's really going to happen. Look, there's a great passenger rail summit that my office has been participating in and trying to figure out the ways to go forward. And I think it would be absolutely wonderful and it would be meaningful. Step one for me, though, is going to be getting back the adequacy of funding and support for the northern tier of it. And then I'd love to see the southern tier for sure.
Thank you. Rick, I think you were next. You had a question? for Governor Bullock.
Yeah, thank you. Governor, first of all, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the last 8 years of partnership. We really appreciate everything that you've done. Couple easy questions. First of all, when we look at your wall there, is that the buck that your son referred to on your commercial that he shot?
No, Rick, unfortunately, this is in his room, and it's actually a hell of a lot bigger. That one, I think I actually shot with Tuss one time.
All right, thank you. And then secondly, what are your thoughts in regard to reshoring, bringing jobs back from foreign countries and bringing them back to the States? And how do we get that done?
Well, I think we do it in a number of ways. First, we quit providing tax breaks for companies that ship their jobs overseas. And to be honest, I mean, that's something that Steve Daines has never stood up for. I think that we do take the things of, like you look at the tax cuts of 2017, and $1 trillion of stock buybacks didn't create more jobs in the US. The debt that it created, I mean, look, I think the corporate tax rate was too high, but at the end of the day, not even the companies were asking for 21%. And there was nothing tied to it that would actually, as you say, reshore or resource jobs back to the US. So I think that's part of it, and creating in the incentive system, if we're going to be affording companies either tax breaks or federal dollars to say, we want those jobs here. I will while I don't always agree with the aims or the way that they did it, the current administration helped put a focus on this in a way that now we're finally getting to the point where trade deals were always just based on trade imbalances, GDP, essentially the overall dollars. But now I think you're going to see more labor protections. And when I say labor protections, is saying that we're not going to do a trade deal where you can, at the end of the day, just be shipping our jobs over and call that a win. So I think both on the trade deals and then what the incentives are we're providing for corporations along the way. If there's going to be tax breaks or tax incentives, I want to see the jobs here.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Rick. And Steve, thank you for the response. Any other questions from my colleagues? Not seeing any.
I see one more, Steve. Russ Fletcher asked thoughts on how we can address the workforce challenges.
Oh, that's perfect.
That is perfect, Russ. And look, I mean, we have done some good things, I think, in Montana. I mean, if you think about when I came in, our 2-year colleges were about associate's degrees. Now they're actually about professionally recognized certificates, things that working with businesses, that what the business actually needs to address the workforce. You still have one apprentice in this country, I think, for every 40 college students, and work-based learning can make a significant difference along the way as well. And there were some good things that the first labor secretary in the last 4 years was working on, mostly with governors on apprenticeships. But access to affordable higher education, freezing college tuition 6 of the 8 years here, having one of the most affordable tuitions in the region, I think helps address workforce. But then you have to get to the micro level, meaning that the micro level is that not everybody has to go to college, and what your businesses need in local communities often vary. So we have to have that suite of programs through apprenticeships, through work-based learning, through professionally recognized certificates that are going to be addressing that as well. And then I'd finally say, because I hopped on at the start of when you guys were talking, I think you talk about workforce development even before kids enter into kindergarten. And there has to be a federal investment in public pre-K, because we know that starts setting up exactly what's going to be happening along the way, long past high school.
Thank you, Steve. Any final questions from my colleagues?
We do have one more, Steve. And Steve, and Governor Bullock, how can we take advantage of the telecommuting environment when our broadband system is ranked 50th?
We can't. And I assume that came from Russ. I mean, look, let's look at, again, the silver lining, to the extent there's any silver linings of the last 7 months of hell, is that people have recognized that you can live dang near anywhere and do your job. And with our public lands, with our work ethic, I think we're going to see more of the telecommuting. But it's not just the telecommuting, Russ, and all of you, it's those homegrown businesses. I mean, it's the work that we've done, for an example, be it in Troy, Montana, working with Deloitte to say, look, even if you're in Troy, you ought to be able to have the same connectivity as anywhere else. So let's actually work on some demonstration projects along the way to amp that up. But I think that being 50th, and I know that in part, one of the things that I heard from Russ throughout some of the CARES Act dollars is, why can't we just invest that in broadband? And that would make a big difference. Now, it wouldn't have been enough money, but also the federal regs never let us do so in that respect to get us to that point. But I am optimistic. And I'm not naive, but I am optimistic that we're really going to be able to make a difference at the federal level, because it's going to take a federal investment to get us to the point of connectivity.
Governor Bullock, I will give you a chance to close, but I will note for the record that Russ apologizes for not being on the screen and asking that question. Apparently he's still in his pajamas, which is either a benefit or just a bad side note to this whole virtual world that we're living in.
Well, other than the sweater, I'm in my pajamas too today, Steve. So.
Steve,
well, Governor,
chance I can just ask a follow-up question real quick, or are we out of time?
We're just about out of time, but can you do it in 10 seconds?
I can. I just wanted to ask Governor Bullock, how do you feel about our cooperatives? Because we have large swaths of land covered by high-speed internet, but that they're not getting the recognition. So one of our goals with the Co-op Development Center is broadband adoption. How would you help us get the word out that we have tons of rural communities just down the road? Eureka is one of our best covered communities with broadband. So we need to kind of change the narrative. How would you help us?
Well, we need to change the narrative, but we also need to, because in a lot of the areas, and I think the co-ops are doing some real good work, but it's just not, for some of our smaller towns, it's not cost effective to actually put the network together so that it has to be a partnership both with the private and co-ops and with the federal government. But the federal government has to do greater investment. And directly to your question, Tracy, I mean, I'm happy to work with you as far as, and MEDA as far as, and the co-ops of how to both underscore the good things that are happening and then make the connections between the places.
Thanks for that question, Tracy. Governor Bullock, we're going to give you a chance to share with us some of your closing thoughts.
No, and I appreciate you all taking the time, but more than that, I appreciate the good work that you do in the communities across the way and all in every corner of our state. And it is one where partisanship doesn't matter, right? It's about actually creating jobs and creating chances for folks to live sort of their Montana dream. And look, this state has provided me incredible opportunities. Like I often say, right, I'm sitting in the governor's house. I delivered newspapers to it as a kid. That's the only way I even knew there was a governor's house. I've made it about 4 blocks in life. And I've tried to, over the last 8 years as governor and 4 years as attorney general, to do what's right for our state and leave it better than when I came into office. We have been able to actually, in a time of deep partisanship, make record investments in healthcare. With 20% of rural hospitals at risk of closing, we haven't lost one. We finally made that record investment last session after trying so many years in infrastructure, but also recognizing that if you're going to make a significant infrastructure package, there's got to be some flexibility, like with the delivering local assistance. grants, we've been able to work on things like together, getting the economic development suite of programs through. And look, time and time again, we've been able to get things done what I think is the Montana way, is by putting aside differences and saying, what can we all agree on? And then moving forward. And I'm not naive, I'm sufficiently idealistic that DC could work more like Montana. And whoever's the leader of the the president level or the leader of the Senate, I mean, that's the focus that I'm going to have, and the way I'm going to work is the same way I've worked in the last 8 years. So I do believe things could work a lot better. I'm committed to working in partnership with you all to get there for sure. So thank you so much for the good work that you do. And with 19 days left, any good words that some of you will say individually about me helps as well.
Governor Bullock, thank you. Steve, we appreciate your get stuff done attitude. That's what MEDA is all about, and your years of partnership with us have been greatly appreciated. So thank you. Thank you for your time. We know you're busy.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks all.
Okay, take care.
Bye now.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you, Steve, for taking the moderation of all of that on. And Rick, for leading us through the first hour this morning, talking about legislative sessions. Again, one of the things that Gloria I probably got to poke somewhere, is that I forgot to talk about our sponsors this morning: Northwestern Energy, Newfields, my app. If you haven't noticed, Kelly's on and active here with Montana Youth Apprentice Partnership, MDT, KLJ, Lake County Community Development Center, Cushing-Terrell, and Montana Cooperative Development Center. Gloria, can you help to educate us on how we're going to jump out into our breakout rooms?
Sure. I just wanted to thank Steve again. We really depended on him the last 3 mornings, and we appreciate it, Steve. So now we're going to do a little breakout fun. We have, let me share my screen so you can see. Here are the breakouts that we have. We have NextGen, that's going to talk all issues with the NextGen report. We have Broadband, that Tracy McIntyre is going to lead. We have Montana Passenger Rail, and Russ Fletcher used his contacts so that David Strohmeyer and House District 100 Representative Andrea Olson could join us. I haven't seen them log in yet, but if for some reason we are having a horrible snowstorm, they might be having technical difficulties.
I'm actually here, Gloria.
Hooray! Thank you so much. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're not in the snowstorm. Workforce, Brian Obert is going to lead us. Value-added ag, Sarah Converse, and then community tools. I'm not sure if Lori Higgins was able to join us. She is going to. Hooray! Thank you, Lori. She's going to update everyone about community reviews, and joined by Tara Mastel, who's going to update you about reimagining rural. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And now I hope you are thinking about which breakout you want to go into. This is going to take about 2 minutes, so please be patient. What you need to do is put in the chat which breakout room you want to go to. And I will slowly move, well, hopefully quickly move you all into your room, and we'll get started. You'll see once you're in the breakout that the timer will start, and we'll just get going. So I will just be patient. I'm going to get started assigning rooms. Also, any of you who are Zoom savvy, please do record the session and download it to your computer. It'd be fun to record these breakouts. Okay, let's get started. It might be quicker. Abby, you want to go into, Who would like to go into NextGen? Here we go. I'm starting. Thanks for your patience.
Again, we all want to thank Gloria for all the work she's been doing. As much as she worries about these things, this has been very smooth for the last 3 days. So again, thank you.
We should have Rick sing for us or something while we're doing this.
Oh no, please, no.
As you do. Well, as Mr. Rogers would say, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I think we're up to about a foot of snow in Butte, Montana right now.
It's bad.
Wow. We have sunshine in the Bitterroot Valley.
Oh, rub it in.
And Helen is just nice right now.
Same with Great Falls even. Come on, Rick, what's up with that?
Blue skies and Billings, as always.
Blue sky in Great Falls, right, Tracy?
Yep, it's beautiful out.
It's even nice in Haber, guys.
Whoa.
You know.
Well,
that's because the wind blows. The wind blew all that snow down our way.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have 2 Russ Fletchers, and so you're both going to pop into rail until once you're in your room, you can move out if you would like. Just, and no one will take offense if you're in the wrong room. We're almost there.
Rick and Gloria, I am sending the document to you now.
Hallelujah.
I knew Rick could sing.
There's some changes from the original, and some of it needs to be wordsmithed, but I think it's okay.
Okay, we're going to start opening some of the rooms. Don't worry if you're not moved yet. It'll just take a minute.
Gloria, how long do we have in the breakouts?
About 20 minutes.
Okay.
And Peterson, where would you like to go?
Hi, Gloria. NextGen, please.
All right. And Anne Marie, where would you like to go? Billy Lee, where would you like to go? Anne Marie wants NextGen. Bye, Anne Marie. Tina Oliphant wants NextGen. You're almost there. Joe LaPlante.
Gloria, I'll do NextGen.
Was that Anne?
Billy.
Billy. Okay. Brian, I'm assuming your workforce. I'll pop you in there. Brigitta, where would you like to go?
Workforce.
Christy Williams. Courtney, where would you like to go?
Hey, Gloria, can I have NextGen, please?
You sure can. Let's see, Joe LaPlante said NextGen. Tony Schneider, I'll pop you in, Tony. I think you're already gone. Let's see, James, you want broadband. Paul Tuss, where would you like to go?
I signed up for passenger rail.
All right, Rick, where would you like to go?
Workforce, please.
Tracy, I better get you into broadband, huh? Sorry. There you go. Bye. Are there any other team leaders I've not popped out? Lori, oh my goodness. Oh, you're one of the Brenda Schillings, Lori. There you go.
I haven't gone anywhere either.
And that was Sarah. And Sarah, you're in value added ag. All right. Jason, where would you like to go? Steve Simonson, where would you like to go?
Broadband, please.
Okay. Michael, we'll pop you into value out. You're already gone. Diane wants broadband. Thanks for your patience. Oh, she's already gone. Who else am I missing? Terry, where would you like to go?
Workforce.
Okay, I guess my chat got so long I wasn't able to see where you want to go. John Rogers, where would you? Oh, Kelly, I'm sure you want workforce, right? So sorry, should have popped you in there first. Lorraine, where would you like to go?
I put workforce, please.
There you go. We're getting there. Kev, where would you like to go?
Broadband, please.
Leslie.
Egg, please.
Deborah Singer wants NextGen. Please add another Russ Fletcher to rail. Done. Dara. Nope. Oh, Dara wants NextGen. Kelsey Bates, workforce. Davey, where would you like to go?
I'll go to community tools.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Community tools.
Community development tools. Where else? Who else do we need to go? John, where would you like to go, John Rogers? Okay, while John's unmuting, Marie, where would you like to go?
I'll go to community tools.
All right, Webb, where would you like to go? Steve, how about you?
Well, I think I'm required to go to NextGen because I'm the moderator. So
You should have spoken up. I'm so sorry. So who, Tim, where would you like to go? Tim Gardapi? Jobs now would like broadband. We're almost there. Kelly Sullivan, where would you like to go?
Workforce, please.
Okay. Jason, where would you like to go? How about John? How about you, John Podolinsky?
Value added ag, please.
Of course. Oh, John can't go anywhere right now. Who am I missing? Tammy, where would you like to go? How about Emily Park? Heather, where would you?
Community tools, please.
I'm so sorry. Thanks for your patience. Who else? Christy, anyone else? Just speak up. Emily, Tim, Christy, Tammy. Do you want to just hang out with me?
This is Christy Williams. I'd requested workforce, but maybe it didn't go through.
There you go. Bye.
Thank you.
Emily Park would also like workforce, please.
All right, Emily, here you go. Tammy, Tim, where would you like to go? Jason, Emily? Emily, you said workforce. And I popped you, and we must have two Emilys. Tim, Jason, Tammy, where would you like to go? And I don't know who is 5583. I'm not sure I can pop a phone number into a breakout.
Gloria, this is Ann Ram, the 5583.
Yes.
I have physically, I can watch everybody talk, but I can't hear anybody.
Oh, when you're in your breakout?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's
I'm in there, but
to be in a breakout,
Of
you
the
need
phone.
both a computer and a phone. I mean, you can't, if you're just by phone, it won't work.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll call back when they break out again.
Okay. Thanks so
All
much.
right. Thanks, Gloria. Bye.
Tammy, Tim, Jason? You're welcome to just hang out with me.
Oh, sorry. Are you there?
I am.
I'm sorry. I popped into a different conversation.
Oh, okay. You're not mute. There you go.
And it really belongs to the community and in the public resource space. So we're excited to be in on these conversations and looking to lend support and wherever that looks best.
That's great. We hear about that issue across all three. So the grant supports Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming.
Community because people are attracted to the jobs that are available in that. So have we considered what are the new types of businesses that can be attracted to these other rural communities that will support the communities that we want to build? I hope that makes sense. Thank you coming at it from a newbie standpoint. Any thoughts on that?
Thanks, Ann. I appreciate that. I think that's helped.
You're right on point though. What we've definitely noticed is that we're not telling the story, especially the co-op world. When you look at the map, if any of you guys want to go to the telecommunication map, it shows large swaths of land are covered, but we're not telling that story. And we're definitely not telling the story of the millions of dollars that are being invested by our co-ops into the state. But because of the universal data funds and the way that FCC has ILAC and CLAC carriers,
you ought to take a look at. And
now, is it on the Summit page or on the Rail Authority page?
It's on the Summit. So it's montanapassengerrailsummit.org.
I've got it.
And if you click on in the news, the link at the upper right. Hi, Gloria.
Okay. I see all of those. Is there anything supported?
And it shouldn't be that hard, but it has been. And I just wanted to see if everybody else had that issue.
I mean, is it as simple as getting the editorial calendar for when those advertising placements are supposed to go out, sitting down and having a conversation saying, great, you know what we're going to do as a community or as a state is we're going to do some talent attraction messaging to tie into that. You guys go ahead and have your separate message, but this is what we're going to do. Because
right.
You know, it's going to take multiple touches over a prolonged period of time to really have that resonate with people. I mean, there'll be the occasional one where it resonates instantaneously.
Right.
By the way, we can increase our probability of success if we cross-reference with our alumni databases, but that's a whole other deal, how hard that is to figure out. But yeah, we should definitely be doing that. Even this one simple step, I think, can make a huge difference.
I wouldn't like to do it alone. I would like to, you know, bring others in. So I think this is a great step to move forward with expanding beyond just the funding too, to really do some of that technical assistance that the Food and Egg Development Centers do, and then move forward with that. And I see Gloria looking in.
Just checking in to see how you're doing. Thanks.
So Leslie.
Hello, this is Tim. Is this still the NextGen group? I had to step away from my computer. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. I will try to pop you in, Tim. It's almost over, but I can pop you in. And Liz, where would you like to go? I'm assuming workforce.
Mute. Perfect, honey. Thank you.
Tammy, are you back? John, you want to just wait it out? Hi, Tom. Everyone is in the breakout room, but we're almost done. So I think I'll just have you wait with us.
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. I had another webinar I had to jump on, so I'm just going to catch the wrap up.
Sure. Oh, and you're just like John Rogers. He looks like he's with us, but he's really on a finance authority meeting. Oh, we just lost him.
Yeah, I had a carbon capture meeting that I had to jump onto, and that just ended. So,
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and click close all rooms. So here we go. They have 57 seconds. The breakout rooms are going to close in 27, 26, 25. So just hang tight. We'll all be back together. That seemed really quick. Maybe we needed more time, huh? Eight, 7, 6. And here they come.
Hey, Gloria, I sent you a text. We couldn't record. It said I needed permission.
I'm sorry.
So I did report it. We tried, but it didn't work.
That's all right.
But I made good notes for you.
Totally my fault. Oh, and I would take notes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you found that valuable, and I hope no one was injured in the transportation back and forth. You were all wearing your seatbelts. Brian.
Yes.
It is, I want to thank everyone who did lead the discussion in our breakouts. And I guess I will turn it over to you.
Are you sure you want to do that? I do want to thank Liz for jumping in at the end on our little subsection. I want to talk to you probably more about that. Just because we got cut off right there at the end. Yes. Again, I will want to go back, thank our sponsors, thank the subcommittee that worked on getting this together, and to thank Steve for doing the interaction with our members. That was, I thought that worked very well. And Rick, like always, kind of leading us through the conversation this morning. Our sponsors, again, going from what we usually have as being a very interactive with each other, I mean, then having the beers in the evenings type conference, to having this virtual, but we still have our sponsors there that have been very supportive, being Northwestern Energy, Newfields, MyApp, which is Montana Youth Apprentice Programs or Partnerships, MDT, KLJ, Lake County Community Development Center, Cushing-Terrell, and Montana Cooperative Development Center. I want to thank everybody for a very interactive, some of these types of Zoom type conferences have been difficult to get interaction and people jumping in and out, and a broad group of people. Obviously, this is a group of people that kind of like sitting around the household table will all jump in. So I think that has been very good, and I want to thank everybody for that. And the number of chats that have come through have been spectacular, that we have the ability to have that interaction. As much as I will like to talk about Billings, I mean, Helen and Billings, we're all competitive, but we're all in it together, as the picture talks about. Again, one of the things that I mean, we're all noticing, we all knew there was going to be a second issue coming. We had the train almost, or kind of run us over from a community and economics of our communities. We're now seeing that second train kind of coming over us. Good luck with that. I think that's the one thing that we need to say is, how do we manage and maintain our communities? Some are in, I don't want to say some are doing better than others. I think this is one of those, all of us are going to get this at some point, this second wave that's going to hit, that's going to impact our main streets. It's coming. So how do we do what we do to try to be safe, first of all, ourselves. Without us being safe or our staff being safe, we can't help. So do everything that you can to be that kind of shining light, showing how it should be done, and then just continue doing what you're doing, because we're making a difference. Just as a side note, going back to what Russ, when he helped to bring us together with this conversation about how do we have a better conversation with our board members, with our community, with people outside, just the one thing that I would say from my standpoint as a director working with my staff and specifically my board, I've been trying to give more stories to my board of things that are going well. And when we did have one of our a business that's been in our community for many years that is transitioning from one generation to the next and had a spectacular email letter to me, I made sure I pushed it to my board of directors. Having board of directors call me and say they started to cry because of the work that in my case, one of my staff members had business, that left a mark, that left a message. And I know that right now my board has even more support for the mission that we're doing. And I just think, I know as much as some of you do a great job, I know we don't about talking about our story. I have to do a better job. And I think MEDA, which does a great job, we can do a better job on telling the story of helping and improving. Kind of at this point, I'd like to open it up for anybody else who has some comments and questions. Again, I love to see some of the people like different Steve, the other Steve. I mean, hearing stories about things going on in Joliet are always a fruitful thing for all of us. Anything new in your neck of the woods?
Hey, thanks, Brian. I don't know if I've got permission to share this or not, but this is Main Street in Laurel. And this is one of the 114 wind turbines headed down the road, $406 million build out in Southern Carbon County, which is going to double their commercial tax base. So just wanted to share that with the group today. So thanks for the opportunity.
Show me the money. That's what that is. That feels like infrastructure. That feels like mag chloride on dirt roads and new culverts in other areas because of a capital investment from an industry. That's what makes this work. Very good over there. Anything else?
So Siboney Stillwater Mine, 1,800 employees, $135,000 per job right now, is looking for another 200 employees. So I realize not everybody wants to be an underground miner, but we're getting $400 million of economic development back to the state of Montana out of that platinum and palladium mine, both in Stillwater and Sweetgrass counties. So lots of good work being done, and you know, diversifying the economy is a big thing, but dollars are circulating out to Butte for tires out of that mine. So just kind of a huge regional impact. So Rick, heads up on that.
Butte?
Thank
Really?
Thank
Man.
you.
There you go. Anything else? Steve, do you have any sage words coming from our past president?
Oh, no, thanks, Brian. And I'm honored to have represented all of you in the Q&A with our candidates today. Thank you for giving me that honor. I had a thought, two things. One, with the roller coaster we're on with the pandemic, and now we're swinging back up to the top, just maybe more frequent communication, even in a larger context, might be really healthy for us to do exactly what you're doing, Brian. Just allow us all to say, hey, how's it going? And maybe coordinating that way. That's just a suggestion. So we're not waiting till spring to come together. So there might be some times along this journey we can just reconnect in different ways. The second thing is more of a plug. We have our annual meeting scheduled for October 22nd. It is all virtual, which actually hurts me because I don't get to embrace a crowd of 300 or so people. You just can't do that anymore. But it's going to be fantastic. And we have produced a video. I called it a film the other day, and my team looked at me, what are you talking about, a film, Steve? Anyway, it's kind of a little mini documentary on our journey over this year. And we have our business folks who've experienced the ups and downs of this talking about what they've experienced, how we've helped them. And so it's kind of a little bit of a story about that. So when that comes out, it will be shown in a virtual context as a kind of a live event of sorts the afternoon of the 22nd. I'll make sure you guys all get a link to it if you want to peek in over our shoulder and take a look at it. That'd be awesome. We'd welcome that.
Thanks.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. You said that so well, so many times over the last 3 days. I just had to make sure we gave you one last plug on that. So you did that well. Okay. And then
Brian, did you notice when Steve was talking, he said he must have been watching one of the debates or something, because he said, this is going to be great. You know, I wonder where we've heard that before.
I can't.
And he has all of his digits, so that's a good thing. Pulling Joe in, which will be a successor here, I'm hoping very soon. But
that's 2 years, Brian. 2 years.
Yeah,
I know. I know.
Don't try to sneak out of that.
And Joe, how big are you on that window in Butte?
Well, I'm on a window in Butte, but we don't have a film about us yet.
You've got to be working on that.
A film, yeah.
Although given the amount of film activity we've seen in Butte recently, I'm not writing it off. That film tax credit has been a huge thing for us. And we actually have a couple significant productions going on over the next month and a half. It's kind of wild.
So just something to make sure everybody is aware, what ABC is having the new show Big Sky coming out, which is talking about somebody murdering young women. Yay! That's great for us.
The plus side is it looks like it all got filmed in Canada.
Yes, you noticed that too. All of the moss coming off of the trees.
Yeah.
I mean, good publicity. I mean, what, isn't it all publicity is good publicity? So,
so Brian,
there you go.
Back to what Steve said about the connections. I think that is really powerful in that this part right now where we're interacting and we're laughing and we're joking. One of the things I've noticed across the board is how I'm concerned that we're all going to burn out. We've all been working incredibly long hours and we're not getting that interactiveness that we normally have with each other, right? That support, the beers after hours and that type of stuff. So what my counterparts and I are doing on the co-op development side, we do a wind down and whoever can join just joins. You have a drink. It's all virtually, but I think excuse me, if we could do that every once in a while, it would be really good. I think sometimes we're out there saying we're by ourselves and our heads are down and talking about not telling our story. We're also not very good at taking care of ourselves. Let's be fully admitting that. And so we need to kind of work on each other and remind each other that we're friends and that this family is incredibly important to us. And we need to maybe do that more often.
You know, it's interesting, Tracy, you're talking about no beers after hours. And I read an article the other day that said 42% of the American workforce are not drinking on the job. So maybe that's why there's not beer after hours.
We can do a noon lunch hour. I'm okay with that.
Brian, you know, we're doing something like that with the CRDC working group for 8 months now. Every week on Friday at noon, the CRDC working group gets together, and sometimes there's all of us. There's 11 or 12 of us, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 of us. But we always get together and we make it a priority to talk about best practices, to talk about what we're doing well and what we need some help with. Gloria is helping to facilitate that, and Tracy, to your point, it keeps us grounded, it keeps us connected, and I think that we'll continue this even after COVID is long gone. I really do.
And maybe that's it, is we need to have that, 5 o'clock on a Friday or on a Wednesday that we have a little get together. I think that's something we need to look at, maybe even expand what CRDC does going forward.
Yeah.
Again, I do want to reiterate to everybody, stay healthy. We do know a few of our people have went through this, and God bless that they have all of our people directly on here that I'm aware of have made it and made it well. So I think that's something we need to all think about. And again, we're all going to be in this as we go forward. Gloria, again, thank you and Mike for everything that you guys do. Even though you guys live over there where we're in the middle of a snowstorm, you pulled it off once again.
Oh, thank you. There was some quick prayers involved today because I had an unstable internet connection. Just real quick, I want to remind you all, don't forget to sign up for Tell Us Something workshops that start Monday. Also, if you're willing to join any of the working groups we're going to start or that already exist, please send me an email and I'll loop you in. And then I see we are down to 47 people. I think it would be great to close with a screenshot, as Brigida had us do yesterday, of everyone who's stuck with us till the end. So could you all turn on your video? Someone actually sent me a message yesterday that, oh, I can't turn it on, I'm in my pajamas. And so don't worry, just turn it on. And we'll get a screenshot of the last 47 that wrapped up with us. Almost there, I think. Look at your shining faces. I'm like you, Steve. It's really hard to do this without seeing you all. Brigida, yes.
Ask them this question. Who has 2 thumbs and loves economic development? Everybody put your thumbs up.
There we go.
Yay, got it, got it.
And
The world
Russ
needs good cheerleaders.
Yes, Russ actually has clothes on. That is a good day. Thank you.
Thank God.
You're assuming I have pants on.
I could care less right now, so.
Just don't stand up, Russ. That's all
Yes.
we're asking.
Don't stand up, Russ.
And again, thank the subcommittee, Tony, and everything you did. You were herding cats on us trying to help Gloria get this done. And Russ, I want to thank you for your bug in my ear a couple times a day. Continue doing it. I need that all the time. So.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Definitely stay
Gloria,
safe,
guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.